May 2025, Reform UK achieved something many thought impossible. 28 councillors elected. The largest political group on Cornwall Council. A political earthquake. But less than a year later, leaders had resigned, councillors had left, and the group had lost its position as the council's largest political force. So what happened? And more importantly, who was really making the decisions? To understand the collapse, you first need to understand the scale of the victory. The 2025 local elections transformed Cornwall's political landscape. Reform UK emerged as the largest group on the council, winning 28 seats across the county. For supporters, it was proof that voters wanted something different. For opponents, it was a political shock. Either way, expectations were enormous. The new group wasn't entering opposition, it was entering a position of influence. The challenge now was turning electoral success into effective governance. But the victory celebrations didn't last long. Within months, tensions began to emerge. Leadership positions changed, disagreements became public. Questions began to circulate about the direction of the group and how decisions were being made. At first, these developments could be dismissed as normal political growing pains. After all, new political movements often experience turbulence when they suddenly gain power. But then more departures followed, and then more. What initially appeared to be isolated incidents began to look like a pattern. One event would later become a focal point in the story. A confrontation at the Highwayman Inn. A recording of the incident would become part of a wider dispute that extended far beyond a single disagreement. The recording itself did not explain everything, nor did it provide answers to every question. But for many people involved, it appeared to symbolise deeper tensions already developing within the organisation. What had started as a local disagreement was now becoming something much larger, and increasingly, former insiders were beginning to speak publicly about their concerns. As councillors resigned or left the group, a recurring theme began to emerge. Different individuals, different circumstances, different departures. Yet similar questions kept appearing. Questions about influence, questions about control, questions about the relationship between local representatives and structures beyond Cornwall. Now, it's important to be clear here. The existence of those concerns does not automatically prove those concerns were justified, nor does it prove any particular allegation. But it does create a legitimate public interest question. Why were multiple people describing similar frustrations? Was this simply the result of personality clashes? Was it the consequence of a rapidly expanding political movement struggling to manage success? Or was there a deeper tension between local decision-making and national party control? The available evidence does not conclusively answer those questions, but it does show that those questions were repeatedly being asked. By the time the dust began to settle, the numbers told their own story. The group that had entered Cornwall Council with 28 councillors had become significantly smaller. The largest political force in Cornwall was no longer the largest political force in Cornwall. For voters, that matters. Not because politicians disagree. Disagreement is part of democracy. It matters because people vote expecting the representatives they elect to exercise meaningful influence over local decisions. When that expectation appears to come into question, scrutiny becomes entirely reasonable. Cornwall's reform story is still being written. Some believe the causes are obvious. Others reject that interpretation entirely. But one question remains at the centre of the entire story. When Cornwall's voters elected local representatives, who was really in charge? This story isn't over, and there's much more to uncover. Subscribe to Cornwall Political Watch for future investigations into Cornwall Council, local politics, and the decisions that affect communities across Cornwall. And if you believe accountability matters, please like this video and share it with others. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for our next investigative report.